Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. I would start by giving you some good news. I know you've been waiting, we have been waiting and waiting for the third season of ThisConnect to start. And I'm very happy to say it is playing right now, free to watch on the MotorInc app. We're not sure when it is coming to YouTube just yet. That scheduling has not become clear to us, but Episode 1 is out. It's all about me. I am very excited, and Kartik's also in it. I think you should go and check it out.
And now the Tata Altroz.
Oh yeah, and we forgot. So we are on MotorInc First though, and today we're going to discuss the new Tata Altroz. Did I tell you that the Tata Altroz reminds me of Jonathan Livingston Seagull?
Who?
If you know who, leave us a comment. Where did you drive this car?
Guess.
At the plant.
Guess again.
They sent it home to Pune to your house.
Oh shucks, no man.
Then?
Tell one last.
Bengaluru.
Yes.
For the Tata Altroz.
Yes, sir.
Nandi Hills.
Yeah, well, in the vicinity.
Oh no, man.
In some ways, it's best that Taj at the airport is the best.
Yeah,
because
it
like
is.
you land
Correct.
and you're at the location.
Correct.
You don't want to travel in Bengaluru.
No, it
that's
makes
for
total
sure.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then wherever you want to drive is around there. So
Correct.
that's superb. So
Nice.
that way it was good.
So the Altroz has been a regularly updated, popular Tata hatchback, right?
You're tubbing, no.
I don't know cars. If I ask him a question, which apparently is the wrong question to ask, then he says, I'm chabbing him. I mean,
No, because think
don't
about
put me
it.
on a spot like this, yeah? I'm an innocent person who's curious about cars.
So the thing is that the Altroz it's been 5.5 years
Okay,
since it was launched,
okay.
and now we're getting a facelift.
Racer Edition was not a facelift.
No, there was an addition. There was no update to the Altroz at all.
So all the other Tata products in the meantime have moved on, but the Altroz was the last one.
And the Altroz really did feel like it's a little bit stepbrotherly treatment, because you can see like equipments and stuff happening for the other models like the Punch, for instance, because Punch is doing so well.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of the attention in this price range and commanded the attention for itself within the family. And the Altroz has now finally got some attention, and which was a facelift. Usually models which are at the 6-year mark, nearing the 6-year mark, you'd be expecting a new gen car.
Correct.
If not at the 6th, by the 7th year mark. So this is, yeah, well,
So, but why are they treating it like Mahindra treats the Tivoli platform?
So now it can't be down to the platform because the Punch is getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Right? But the Altroz isn't. I think it's quite simple that the hatchback, the Altroz, hasn't worked so well for Tata. Whereas in the same space, like I said, the Punch has done so well. So they've kept their focus
That's
on
because
the Punch.
the Altroz is just a hatchback. The Punch is a SUV. I know what you're going to type. The Punch is an SUV, right?
Correct. It works for people.
Yeah,
Right?
it does.
So, and you know what? As much as we make fun of that as well, from a buyer standpoint, I can see why the Punch works for them also.
No. Look. I'm not making fun of this. I'm dead serious about this. I remember driving the i20 to Pune and back, and then driving the i20 Active to Pune and back. I'm not sure which organization I was with at that point, but I remember that both times the car was full of people. There were 4 people at least in the car. And I distinctly remember enjoying the Active more than the i20.
Yeah.
The slight change in how you sit and look out at, and in the car we did make a lot of jokes about being in a pseudo SUV, etc., etc. But there was a distinct difference in the driving experience, and I did think that the Active was a more interesting vehicle to drive than the i20, as subtle as the difference was.
So I think the most fundamental thing which I will highlight is that by going tall, and it's not just about the ground clearance, the body itself becoming taller, it allows you to optimize the seating, right? So that it becomes more spacious, it becomes more comfortable. And that is a benefit that the Punch offers. And I could see why somebody would find that to be more practical,
Right.
versus smaller, I mean like a hatchback or even the Altroz, even though the Altroz is actually slightly larger in terms of size, right? So this time I'll come straight to the point.
Yeah.
With the Altroz facelift, not much has changed in terms of your decision. If you thought the Altroz was a good enough buy for you earlier,
It still is.
It still is. In some ways, it will be sweeter still.
Okay.
Right? If the Altroz didn't cut it for you earlier, that's not going to change for you now either.
Okay.
So Tata has done several things to the Altroz to make it more appealing and to, make it more appealing.
Wow, you really have run out of things to say, and we're like at the 7-minute mark.
No, because, okay, chal, let's go straight to it. What were the fundamental issues of the car which would need to be bettered to make it, let's say, a rival to the Baleno, a rival to the i20, aren't really there.
Okay.
Okay, so first, from a family user standpoint, since we compared it to the Punch, this is not a car that you would have bought for the backseat. Its backseat is usable, but this backseat has never been the most spacious.
Right.
Right? So that continues to be a compromise today because the size of this car has not changed. Space in the cabin has not changed. They have done some changes on the inside that make it better, which I'll get to, but fundamentally the space remains the same. So this back seat is still a little tight, especially if you have taller people in the back.
Right.
Right. And now with the sunroof and all of that, that also eats into the sense of space there. Right. So
the
that
Altroz has a sunroof.
yeah, of course. You remember the variants, right? So I'll give you that also. So that's one improvement. Instead of 11, now there are 7 variants.
Just 7?
They've
How
reduced the
sweet.
number of variants, and the lineup now is a good lineup. Right? You could think of even buying the second from base variant. If you want more stuff, of course, you go to the higher variants, but it's quite well spec'd out.
Okay.
So they've fixed some things as well. So the variants is one of the things, but they have moved from, they used to have the XE, XZ, XT, whatever, and all of that to the personas.
Of course.
So you have pure, this, smart, and accomplished S and all of that. So they moved to that nomenclature now.
Would Tata, the marketing people who came up with these names, would they get the irony when I go into a meeting where we are reviewing the success of various products and then say, so exactly what has the Altroz accomplished? S? So far? I'm just kidding. Okay, so 7 variants. Okay, but you started at equipment, so let's go back to that. So you said now it has a sunroof.
Yeah, sunroof was there earlier also. So now this is part of the story. So which is why I fumbled over the make it more desirable, make it more tempting, because you will look at this car and say that it's got more equipment, but a lot of the equipment actually has gone back and forth in the sense that when the Altroz Racer came, it came with some more equipment than the standard Altroz did at that point in time, like a larger touchscreen, a 10-inch unit and all of that, which is also available here and was available with the pre-facelift Altroz. Because after they did the Racer, they introduced it on the regular Altroz. They brought the sunroof there.
Right.
On the current Altroz, you will find some of these gaps. So on the Altroz Racer also, they'd got the 360-degree camera, which is also available here, which had also gone to the standard Altroz. So it feels like when we experience the new facelifted Altroz now, you think, oh, this has all come fresh. But no, it was there. That update had reached the standard Altroz. So with the facelift, the biggest change really is how it looks. Right?
Okay, so let me summarize what he said so far. What he's basically said is, if you remember the Altroz as the 5-year-ago car, then this car will seem to have a lot of equipment. But if you've gone to a Tata dealership in, let's call it the last 6, 7, 8 months and seen where the Altroz is at, then a lot of this car will look like this was reskinned, redesigned, tweaked, but it's fundamentally not very different from the last one.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So the one fresh piece of equipment on the inside that you'll find is that now it gets on the top spec, Accomplished Plus S. You get the 10-inch digital display for the driver's instrument cluster. On the variant below that, it's a 7-inch unit, which was there earlier as well.
That's the Accomplished S, without the Plus.
Yeah, correct. So Accomplished S, so that means it has the sunroof.
Right.
And Accomplished Plus S gets the larger display and some connected car tech and all of that stuff. So that's the one thing that you will know is new.
Right.
Other than that, I think the design on the outside is the big update, which will be obvious. How it looks on the inside also has been changed. So first starting with the exterior, dimensions, all of that same. New alloy wheels, again with this aero style. Again, I think it's better than some of the other aero style wheels that we've seen from Tata, but these are okay at best, right? The variant below this gets the hyper style wheels, which look like alloys, but they are not. and the base and the other variants get steel wheels with covers, right? The car in itself, no,
Hyper.
hyper style wheels, hyper style, yeah. Hyper
This is a
style.
marketing term, or is this a actual expectation
No.
setting term? So because you can have steel wheels with like regular plastic covers, you know, the ones that fly off when you have a near crash. Then you have alloys, which are alloys. Then you have the hyper steel wheels.
Hyper steel wheels are below alloys, huh?
No, it is above.
Acha, because it's
You
hyper.
don't pay for the alloy, but you get the feeling of I have an
I
alloy.
have to think of the name for the
But when you
alloy
dent
wheels.
the rim, you pay for a steel wheel being dented, not an alloy being broken.
Only plastic has to be
It's
replaced.
hyper style.
I think the alloy wheels are also called something drag cut or something like that. Anyways, on the outside, what you will notice which changes the look of the car is the front bumper. By and large, a lot of stuff that way has changed because the door skins are new. Because now they have flush door handles for the front door, which is, as always, a compromise on practicality.
Right.
The second doors, the rear doors, had the handles up top. They still remain there, but the design itself is flowing a bit differently, so all those panels are different now.
Okay.
Right? You get LED headlamps and pretty much all the variants, but there's a slight difference between all of them. They look good. I
Okay.
think the face of the car, up till now, I used to think that the Tiago was the best looking of the small Tatas. This is now making me wonder about that. I always thought of the Tiago as a very European looking car, and the Altroz also looks good. And it was always a good looking car, the shape of it,
Yeah,
all of that.
it was good.
So that's still maintained, but it looks better.
Better now.
One thing, yes. Sorry. One thing that they have not done, and that's a great thing, is that they do not have the connected LED DRL up front.
So where do they have it?
They have it at the rear, but you know, with all the other Tata.
Oh, the tube light thing they don't have.
Yeah, because you know how patchy it ends up looking, right?
Right.
So in this, they've not done the connected thing. And I think that's fantastic because if it doesn't look proper, it should not be done. And the good thing is that the smaller DRLs that are there, the eyebrows, right? Those are looking better.
Got it.
And that's one subtle theme in this conversation that, again, it's good to see that there are some improvements happening. So this is one of those things which on the outside I was like, interesting. That they haven't done the connected. The tail lamps are connected on the higher variants, but at the front they've not done it, and I think that's good. On the inside, completely new dashboard. Earlier, you wouldn't remember it. It used to have a very plain-looking dash on the passenger side.
Okay.
It used to look empty. It didn't. It just felt like something missing.
There's supposed to be something here, but for some reason
it was like this slightly arty thing where it was a little concave, and then the center console area was convex, and with that kind of a rounding shape to it. So, but it just felt empty. It was, so now they've done new dashboard. It's better design. But it's still, and we took a picture like of the dashboard, and there are 6 textures there. Each one is different, and because the finishes of them are a little complicated, you end up thinking that it's not finished well, because you know somewhere there are those streaks and all, and then you see lines not matching up. So okay, chal, you can put this off as nitpicking, you're going after Tata, whatever the hell, but what you will notice and what can be pointed out clearly is that what has been an issue on the Altroz since before is the fitting of the panels and around the glove box area, and that still remains. So even though this has been redone, those kind of fit finish issues are there here as well, while the sense of perceived richness of the cabin is higher than before.
Right.
It still has those basic things which you hope to not see. So like the edges you'll see are sharp, they're straight, those plastic strips sticking out, stuff like that. And this was consistent across the 2 cars that I drove or any other car that I sat in, like under the aircon vents, the plastic is ill-fitting, there's always a gap there.
Got it.
Which I always complain about in the Skoda, right?
Now, just to set context here, is this kind of fit finish gaps common to cars that it competes with, like the Baleno or?
No.
It's not?
No.
Okay. Is this kind of fit finish issues common to Tata's other cars, irrespective of price?
Yes.
You have seen this in other Tata
Yes.
cars. Okay. So the point we are making is not the fact that the Altroz is automatically much worse than anything else. We're just saying in this segment, this kind of a slip-up is not common. Although you could say that the Baleno's interior materials don't look as rich and well finished
Absolutely.
as the Altroz is trying to do now. Took the step forward, forgot to finish that. So it's not as big a step as it could have been.
Yes.
And the second context is this is not unusual for Tata.
Yes. And one thing you'll always see, like on the outside, I'm not bringing it up because it's par for the course now, right? You'll see that there are inconsistent panel gaps. So, and one of the most tricky things that Tata does, and great for them that they have the ambition to make complicated designs that look striking, and they do. Like for the tail lamps, for instance, have this streak kind of shape that wraps around the sides, and that means the panel goes into the body panel.
Right.
So it's like a dish shape into which
It's a full 3D.
and that's a tricky place. So when you see the left to the right, there's always a mismatch. And this is not just on the Altroz, we've seen it even on the Harrier.
Right.
Right. So it's something that we've seen in all of them. So this fit finish aspect is a consistent inconsistency.
Got it.
Right?
And you're not surprised by it?
No, I'm
and
not.
you were hoping that you were surprised, saying, okay, chalo, they sorted this part out.
I would say that's what I'm saying. Like, so there's a subtle sense that the Altroz feels a step above all those expectations. It's not still at a place where you'll say, it's done.
Right. Got it.
But it's like saying, okay, something has moved, right? And in this regard, let me just put it out there. Somebody messaged to ask me, did everything work?
Oh, no. yeah, I remember a history with that. Yes.
Yeah. Did all the DRLs stay on and stuff like that? Yes, they did.
Right.
I didn't notice any of the other cars, which is what happened when we drove the curve, that you saw car after car with one eyebrow gone, right? Which was not the case here. There were like over 50 cars out there being driven around, and you were constantly crossing them. And so everything worked, not just in terms of the electronics, but the machine itself. So again, this subtle sense of, I mean, this should not be something that we're talking about.
Not for a manufacturer this old and not in 2025
Right.
for sure. Yeah.
But the point is, yes, it does come up and people do ask us about it, right? And so that was again a positive for me. In the cabin, the dashboard, okay, forget the textures. By and large, it's still looking good. Whatever the pluses of it were, remain. Whatever were the shortcomings, remain. So like, I think the seating position, while better than that on the Nexon, it's still slightly not quite there. You know, at the lowest position, the steering is still a little too high. So invariably for me, like where I like to set my seat as low as possible, I can't do that. I have to bump it up to get to a place where then I kind of align with the steering. And please keep in mind that the other thing in this story is that we've not driven the top spec variants.
Got it. Okay.
Because this you could think of as Altroz facelift launch part A. There will be a part B, and there'll be a part C, and there'll be a part D.
5 years apart.
I think a year and a half, you can think. Because you remember we did the Tiago CNG AMT? This is the same engine. We drove the CNG version and we drove the diesel version.
Yeah.
The CNG, manual. And they don't have they don't have the top spec variant yet with an auto. I mean, they don't have an automatic variant yet. And I'm guessing that will come in some time in the top spec variant.
Okay.
Then it'll get all the features like with the 10-inch digital display for the driver. The ones that we drove had the 7-inch display. Similarly, the diesel was also the manual. I would have thought that by now we'd go to the diesel, at least the
AMT. Yeah.
At least the AMT. Because the Nexon has got the diesel with the dual clutch. But that might be overkill for this car. And this, I mean, in terms of cost, it might just become too much. The petrol has now 3 transmission options. It has the manual, it has the AMT, and it always had the DCA. I mean, it had the DCA earlier. We did not drive any of the pure play petrols. We drove the petrol, CNG combination, and the diesel.
Got it.
Right? So that was the baseline. Sorry, jumping around.
But the petrol is on sale.
Yeah, it's on sale.
You only drove the CNG and the diesel versions.
Correct. And I think there's a reason why we didn't drive the petrol, but we'll talk about that later. So to complete the cabin conversation, I think the highlight for me was, yes, that they have done a few tweaks which are great. Like on the seats, You know, I was complaining that, why aren't manufacturers being more creative about, improving comfort and in the cabin? So what they've done is that they've changed the design for the seats. So the bases have you remember the Tiguan, they had that extension cushion. So in this, what they've done is they've added an extension to the seat base. It's part of the base. It just sticks out a little bit further and the seats are inclined more. Right?
Got it.
So they've done that. They've changed the seat design, front and back. So with that, the back seat, where it's even though not the most spacious, it makes better use of that space, right? So because you have just better support. But if you're a 6-footer, it's still going to feel like just about enough.
And you said the addition of the sunroof, etc., has taken off a little bit of the headroom also.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the low variants, you have the option of getting a sunroof or not.
Don't opt for one.
Yeah.
There are other ways to dry your kids. Thanks, Vikas. Don't buy the car with the sunroof. Favor headroom instead. I promise it's a better deal.
You'll save weight. You'll have better ride. You'll have better handling because weight's reduced up there. No, I'm serious, man.
No, look, if you live in a cold country and you want to buy a Tata Altroz, please get the one with the sunroof.
What?
It's true. In a cold country, a sunroof does make sense.
Okay.
Because on a good weather day, you can have the sunroof open. You can have a nice cool breeze inside the car.
And don't need to use
Right.
the AC.
And don't need to use the AC. It makes total sense. So if you're buying an Altroz and you live in a cold country, please do get the sunroof.
Okay. Now, moving on. So the backseat, I think it's the reason why the backseat is that remains a little bit compromised. It can't be fixed easily. It's a combination of the shape of the car and the fact that the boot is that large. The boot is the largest in the segment, remains that way.
And this is before you measure it to the ceiling like a Hyundai would.
And in this, again, like the small things that you see missing, right? So the boot floor, what you'd usually have is the partition, the boot floor itself, which is movable. You can pick it up so you can access the spare wheel. Here, it's just in the shape of where the wheel sits.
So what happens to the rest of it?
So the rest of it is whatever the floor of the car is. And fundamentally, this bit in between is not sturdy enough. So it already without use was looking kind of like it had sunk in. Okay. So, small stuff, right? But on the other hand, I'm again jumping, but contrast to the CNG variant, right? Now the CNG variant has that twin cylinder thingy, which is 20.
This is a 4-cylinder engine with a twin-cylinder fuel tank.
Right. 3 cylinders, okay, not cylinders, but 3 tanks. So the twin cylinder.
3 tanks.
Because petrol also, no? 37 liters of
Do
petrol.
they have a 3-cylinder engine? It'd be so awesome to have a 3-cylinder engine with 3 tanks.
Yeah, the diesel is a 4, the petrol is a 3.
Dude, I love the symmetry of it. Can you imagine? I have 3 cylinders in the front, I have 3 cylinders in the back. I use those to burn in those. Oh, I love it. I love it. What a cool idea.
So what they've done, how they've designed the boot area for the CNG system is superb. It really feels thoroughly done. So like you have the 2 tanks. Over that, there's a nice plastic, how do you say it? It's a hollow plastic piece, but it's sturdy, it's thick. So it goes over the tanks and that forms so that, otherwise the tanks would have the indentation in between. So the base is flat.
Flat floor,
right? And those are held down by these Velcro straps.
Right.
And you need to use the Velcro straps. You need to get to that to access the toolkit if you need to remove the tire. So all of that is very nicely done. It's very well thought out. And in that, we also used the system to drop the spare wheel. The spare wheel is mounted underneath floor
the car,
in the CNG. And one thing we noticed in that was very cool that one of the tools has this sticker on it that says, turn until you hear 3 clacks. Clacks or something like that. And it's not a click, it's a clack or something like that. And you're like, what the hell does this mean, right? So I said, I have to try it. So I dropped the wheel down and then I was bring the wheel back up and you're rotating. And you go and it starts getting a little stiff, and then you say, okay, I'll push it a little bit. Push and you hear that clack. And you're like, okay, that's the first.
That's one.
I mean, if the sticker was not there, I would have stopped there,
right?
I said, no, the sticker said 3, So I said, we'll try a little bit more. So I said, okay, now I'm putting not just muscle, I'm putting weight into it, right? So I'm like, push it a little bit, push, clack. And I'm like, okay.
How do you get to the third one then?
Yeah, so for the third one, you really have to lean into it. Like I thought that no, it can't go any further, and then it does. That third clack then comes, and you're like, that sticker makes sense. So that then secures the tire back in place properly, and it's a space saver. Okay, so it's not a full size.
All this for a space saver?
At least you have one,
Yeah,
yeah.
at
And
least
some
you
of the others, they're done away with
Fair
it.
enough.
So that's the story of the spare tire.
If you're discussing spare tires in so much detail, clearly they've not done enough in the car to satisfy Kartikeya's curiosity, right?
So, like I said, okay, we'll move on.
Can I do quick summary now?
I'll have to tell you what to say in this quick summary. So,
Why?
Okay, you can.
Let's try it. Let's
Okay,
see.
chal.
If it doesn't work out, then you fill it in later.
Okay, fine. Go for it.
So today we're talking about the Tata Altroz. This is a car that's been updated after nearly 5.5 years since it came out in the first place. In the most recent time that it was in the news was when the Racer Edition came out. And what Kartikeya has pointed out is that if you'd experienced or researched the Altroz 5-6 years ago when it came out, till today, it will look like they've taken a big leap forward. But what Kartikeya wants you to understand is many of these changes have happened to the Altroz over the last 2 or 3 years. So while they've changed the design of the car and visually it looks even better than it did the last time around, the actual level of equipment and features and all of that in the car is not really changed by that much. If you thought that this was a car that would be enough car for you to purchase in the pre-facelift situation, it still remains very much that kind of car. And if you decided that no, I think the rivals have better products, it remains more or less in the same place and the rivals will continue to have better products by that expectation set. In that sense, not much has changed. What Kartikeya is happy to see is the exterior of the car has become a sharper looking exterior. It does look good. He thought that the Tigor was the best looking of the small Tatas, but now he thinks that this car has a real shot at being the best looking of the small Tatas, which is a good thing. Last time around, there were a bunch of issues with the interiors in terms of finish. Some of those remain, but the finish level overall seems to have gone up. Equipment levels are slightly up, but the real models with the really, I'm going to say, lavish equipment are still not on the scene because the real top variants have not showed up yet. And this car has taken 6 years to get here, but Kartikeya suggested that there might be another 6 months to 18 months before those cars show up. And just to be clear, we haven't driven the petrol Altroz at all. We've driven the CNG petrol Altroz and the diesel one, and these come in up to a reasonably high variant, but not the highest variants, which is why we're saying there's still more equipment to come to these cars, and we haven't seen those cars yet. So the largest touchscreen we saw today in this drive was a 7-incher, but the biggest one is actually a 10-incher, and that's not on the scene yet. We haven't seen it. So the fundamental story of this car is it's not been the most popular of Tatas, and it sits in a really hotly contested segment where there are cars like the Baleno, etc., which do have a much larger reputation and following both. Tata has made this car look more expensive than in some ways because the finishes are richer and the cabin looks like that. But at the same time, Tata has done the usual thing where some of the fit finishes take it a couple of steps back, and Kartik was hoping that they would have fixed that this time, and then this car would look more expensive and more well finished than the Marutis do, but it doesn't. It was a reasonably good car to drive the last time around, still does. I remember him saying that the Racer had reasonably good suspension on bad roads. I'm assuming it still does because he's saying nothing has changed on that front. It was a reasonably good car to drive with reasonable engines, and that's still the same case as now. If I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not absolutely sure, the highway economy was pretty decent for this car.
So the Racer version engine is not here right now. That's the other thing that's going to come later. That's what I'm saying. So over the next 18 months, you can expect them to come one by one.
Thank you so much for watching MotorInc First Tata Altroz Facelift 2025 Part A. We will be back with you with Part B in 6 months' time. In 6 months' time, it will be season 4. So what did I miss?
We didn't talk about the engines.
That's because you didn't talk about the engine.
Yeah, I said. And it's fine. I think most people will make the decision on the basis of this only. Who cares about the engine and the suspension?
So, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun because to me, this, if they've not done much, I don't know why I'm spending so much time is my feeling, but clearly they have. So tell us about the engines, Kartik.
No, you're spot on. They've done nothing with the engines. No, I'm serious. They've done nothing. The engines are where they were.
Right.
So the diesel is where it was, and which means I think this is what I would only want to stress about the diesel. It's the better engine.
Of the two, yes.
Yeah. Because it's got more grunt. It's always been that way. So if you want a better all-rounder Altroz, That's the diesel. The plus of the Tata diesels is that they do not have the DPF and the AdBlue factor coming in.
Right.
So even for everyday city use, they manage.
Yeah, what he means to say is if you have AdBlue DPFs involved, you should be driving your car a lot so that the cleanliness process of these, the maintenance process, this is just happening as you drive. If you drive around the city a lot and your trips are short, then that doesn't happen and that's additional workload. And if you don't do it, then the damage is quite significant. Since these Tata small diesels don't have this complication, if you don't drive a lot but still want to have a diesel for whatever reason, it makes no sense monetarily anymore. But if you still want to, this is the kind of engine that you get.
Correct. So the diesel, it's the stronger pick. It's familiar in the sense that its refinement wasn't great earlier. It's not great now either. When you start it up, there's a very obvious diesel rumble and you can feel the thrum in the cabin. It's not particularly smooth or peppy. Under boost like when the turbo comes on, that's about just above 2000 RPM. Then it feels like it's on. So there's a little bit of working that you have to do with that, which means working the gearbox. Thankfully, the clutch is light. The gear shifts could have been awesome because, you know, somewhere in Tata, there is somebody who loves driving and you can see that in small things. Like the throw on the gear lever is so short. It's just
Nice.
So it feels like when you're doing that just for the fun of it, it's just such a joy. But the shift itself is a bit loose, right? So on the highway, the way you can get from 100 to whatever when the need be with the diesel is just awesome. And the other thing that strikes you when you're driving the diesel in this way, spending time on the highway, actually you don't even notice it. And that's the beauty of it, is how composed the chassis and suspension is, which was always the highlight of the Altroz.
Correct.
And continues to be today as well. In fact, I don't know if something has been done because I just felt, you know, the Altroz had this control about it, but it almost felt like it could do a little bit of this slight movement, right? Which did not seem to be the case this time. So it was a very enjoyable experience on that front. I took it again on those B roads, and it was smooth. It was easy. It would have been fun to drive if it were for smoother shifts. And the other thing being the steering. The weight of the steering is strangely heavy at center. So it always feels like you're having to put a bit more effort to just get the minor adjustments done.
Right.
And that gets tiring and a bit annoying, right?
Okay. So like a Harley Davidson.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while. So and that was the thing that took away from the Altroz. It seems like a small thing, but you know, you don't realize when you're sitting and just even tracking straight, you're constantly making minor corrections, which you don't think about. In this car, I did because I was like...
Because the effort level is reached that critical threshold as it were.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So that was the thing. With the diesel, fuel efficiency, of course, was great in whatever time we spent with it. I'll put up the image, but I think it was in the region of 18-20 kmpl, which was a mix of narrow roads, highways, whatever, you know, that kinds.
So when they put the hybrid in this, it'll give 40, right?
Hybrid in this. Tata is not looking at hybrid. That's one of the things that is I mean, they've jumped straight to EVs, right? So interestingly, they say that hybrids could be done if need be because the tech is available from JLR.
Right.
So, but as of now, there has been nothing on the hybrid front from Tata Motors. I know you were joking about it, but it's a valid point because hybrids are a good solution.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so that's the diesel. I'm going to leave it at that. The petrol CNG. Again, that engine at its core is not a great engine.
Yeah.
It's decent at best. And I think it's at its best somewhere in Punch, right? I think that's the nicest experience you get from that engine.
Okay.
The CNG doesn't detract from that engine too much. That's the good thing. So when you're driving it in CNG mode, right, you don't, and you toggle back to petrol, the difference doesn't feel as stark over here. You can drive and live with the CNG easily enough. And I was talking to somebody and I was just saying, the performance, it's a bit dull. So the response was, CNG le rahe na.
No, this is not the expectations of performance itself isn't there.
Who cares about the performance and the drivability and all of that? All you care about is the better economics of
Yeah,
it.
in that sense, the word bi-turbo and CNG are like the opposites of each other in terms of expectation setting, right?
So, if your focus is just better economy in an Altroz, then yes, sure,
yeah.
this is going to appeal to you.
Yeah.
If your focus is to really use this and travel with it, keep in mind we will always say this: cars that are easier and more natural to drive are cars that you will enjoy more, arrive at places more happily in, and then end up using more happily, right? And that's what we would like for everybody to have. And keep that in mind. If you want to enjoy this for the longest time, you will have to be in a certain mind state, which is to say, let the guy go on by. I'm not going to try and make that gap or try and keep up the pace. You hold the pace that you are managing.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
And being able to do that, especially continuously and for long distance, actually is very restful. It's very peaceful. And everybody thinks it's slow, but it's actually not. It is very efficient. It can get you there almost at the same pace as the guy who passed you. But it is much lower energy consumption, and sometimes even on a very fast machine, I'm riding bikes mostly, and I will still be in that state where if somebody's trying to challenge me, let's race, you go. And then you realize that when I'm stopping, they have just stopped, which means for all the effort that they put into it, they didn't fundamentally go any faster. And having that reserve means when you arrive, you have lots left in terms of energy, and you can do stuff after that.
Right. So it's the petrol, whether it's with the CNG or not, it's an engine that you adapt to and settle into that groove.
Yeah.
It's not a multifaceted engine.
I think you said this for some other Tata CNG also.
So it's the same engine, right?
Yeah.
Like for the Tiago also, it's the same.
The Tiago, correct.
It's the same engine. And so imagine it feels right in the Tiago. In the Tiago, you remember, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty nice.
Correct.
Whereas in this bigger car, it feels a little at its limit. Not
right.
little, it is at its limit, which is why when you try to change pace, it feels strained.
Right.
When you, and I'm not saying just drive it hard, you just try and pick up pace, you'll hear the boom from the engine.
It's basically he's saying that, look, you're driving along peacefully and you decide to pass that thing. But that thing is not going super slow. It is going at a reasonable click. And at this point, this engine now in this slightly larger car will feel like it has to work hard to get it done. It will get it done. But in the Tiago, smaller car, it just put less effort into it and get past that thing, that difference.
So it's a milder mannered experience. And if you are in tune with that, that's great. Again, shouldn't have to be highlighting this, but everything worked well. There were no issues, because in the Tiago, I had an issue with the CNG switch and all
yes,
of that.
you did. Yes, I remember.
Did not have any issue. Was doing the same thing, switching on and off, constantly trying to figure out how much of a difference there was between the two modes and stuff like that. Nothing went off. The question about what is the efficiency of the CNG, which should be paramount for a product like this, I'm not entirely sure. In the time that I spent with it, I went through a little more than the quarter of a tank, and I think I had done 80 odd kilometers. So, and this is a 10 kg capacity tank, right? On paper, its efficiency is about 4 kilometers per kg less than a Baleno, let's say. So this is any which way by claim not the most efficient CNG that you can buy in this space today, right? So that's the CNG, and I think the reason we didn't drive the DCA, the DCA is the only one that's available in the top spec variant right now. We didn't get to drive it. That's the one that would have had the screens and the bigger screen and all of that. But we didn't get to drive it. And fundamentally, this is a point to be made. The DCA is a affordable DCA solution, dual clutch solution. This engine is not a strong engine. So when you put two weak
components together, you don't get a powerful result.
Yes. Like for in the same example, the Baleno, for instance, right? It has an AMT, and people will typically be like, AMTs are crap, right? But that engine is so good that the AMT has the flexibility of managing itself so that things work out well.
So the engine compensates for the weaknesses of the AMT, as it were.
Yes, sir. So that's why the DCA is not something that I think was being showcased here either. And that wouldn't be my topic in this segment either. right? One thing I did not mention when we were talking about the CNG and everything is because of that twin cylinder tank thingy, it has a boot, which is, it does have a boot, 210 liters or something like that, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, which is pretty decent.
We packed some luggage into it, and you can see that, you know, an overnighter, more luggage, you'll get a sense of the space, and the second row falls down. So if and when you need to, you can expand luggage space as well. So the practicality of that is definitely very solid.
Yeah. And no, Tata splitting the CNG tanks into 2 tanks has given them an enormous amount of flexibility in terms of this particular part of the packaging.
Yeah.
Sure.
So chassis and suspension, that's the same thing. That it feels competent, it feels confident, it feels reassuring, and that's, I think, in the driving experience, that's the highlight. If the steering were better, it would be a joyous experience.
More interesting experience at least. Okay.
So that's basically the story of the Altroz.
Do you think it's going to be more popular this time?
No, I don't think so.
So, why do manufacturers, when they see a product, and it's not specific to the Altroz, I just want to understand the thought process here. So, when a manufacturer launches a product and it doesn't do well, you see them continuing to try and push that product, and what is it? It's just inertia? It is just that we worked so hard that we can't let it go? Is it?
So sometimes I think it can be, let's first and foremost accept that perception is a big part of being able to convince people to buy it in.
Sure.
So this change, theoretically, I mean, I could be completely wrong, and this will completely change the tide for the Altroz.
Okay.
Right? Because it looks so much cooler, and it is cooler looking than any of its rivals, right?
Okay.
It could do it.
So it's an attempt to say, okay, maybe that was the issue and we can fix that.
It's an attempt to fix things that can be fixed, which are seen as shortcomings. So the cabin experience, yes.
Right.
They've tried to improve the comfort in the backseat, and they've managed to do that.
Right.
So they've tried to address those aspects, which is great. But the one, which is why I would say that it doesn't work for me, is because the fundamental issues are not really.
No, I'm coming at it from I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying statistically and historically, products that have not worked in India have just not worked. Right? Can you remember a single product in any segment which didn't have which, let's say, got off to a rocky start, and then manufacturer tweaked something? Could be mechanical, could be packaging, could be trim, could be price, could be quality levels. They tweaked something, and then that product went off and said yes.
No, it's never gone to that level, but they've gone from being to being okay.
Self-sustaining at least.
Yeah, we are all right. So that you can at least think about, next time when we do this, we know what to fix and nail it, right? Instead of saying that it's so low right now that there is no next time.
Right.
That's the thing. And one thing I want to point out, and it had happened even in the Tiago, and that time I had just signed it off saying that, nah, this is nitpicking. But it happened in the Altroz as well. It's a small thing, but it's a damn strange, annoying thing. Okay, what they've done is for premium feel. So the door pad now has fabric. Okay, but the thing is that your armrest on the inside and the door pad fabric are very different. The door pad fabric is coarse to the point that when I got out of both the cars, I was like rubbing my elbow, like it's burning, like what's going on here? And then I remember the same thing had happened in the Tiago also, or was it the Racer? I don't remember. But I remember the same thing, and I was looking like, have I become like a softie or what?
No, that happens to me in the Wagoner also.
Wagoner.
Yeah. If I take Ubers now and then, like 3-4 days in a month when I don't want to ride bikes, and not the latest generation of the Wagoner, but the one before that. When I sit down like this, that little insert in the door handle with the little cup where everybody forgets their mint wrappers or whatever, it always traps hair from the just above my elbow every single time.
Ouch.
All the Wagoners.
Oh.
It's only the Wagoners. Doesn't happen in any other car. So if I sit in a Wagoner for some time at least, I'll remember saying, I can't put my hand there because I know it's going to get. And then I forget.
Alright.
And then I do this and it's 100% Wagoner thing, not the current one, the previous one.
And one thing that I want to add is with regards to the petrol engine. I remember it so clearly from the launch. It was somewhere in Rajasthan, I don't remember where. And post that also. This engine used to feel just so random. Like its power delivery was so uneven that it was an absolute no-no. So the evolution of it today is where what I look at it today, like if it were if it were in that kind of a tune, I would have said that this is not even in consideration.
Right.
But today the power delivery is now consistent enough, it is smooth enough that it's at least easy to live with, that you can live with this. The performance is dull, but the performance is consistent, it's predictable, which was not the case earlier.
Right.
So that is an area of improvement which I'm glad has happened. And therefore the petrol, even though it's not a great pick, if it does work for you, okay.
Right. Negotiate with the dealer, get the older models, the same thing. No, I'm kidding. Look, we are going to be honest about it. What Kartikeya said at the start basically applies. If you thought this was a purchase-worthy car previously, it remains and has a little bit more extra. And if you decided that this was not purchase-worthy previously, nothing fundamentally has changed that will alter this decision for a majority of the people considering the Altroz. He likes the movement that he's seeing, but there are critical areas where Tata constantly makes a misstep. We were wanting to see those missteps slowly get eliminated. And what he's basically saying is, this time, nothing actually broke on the car during the launch, which is a good thing to happen. But in the interior, there are a few fit finish issues that if Tata were to eliminate those also, your overall experience would go up further. And that's it.
And of course, because it's Tata, some change to the chassis has been made to improve crash test performance, apparently for upcoming some more changes that are to come.
This is already a 5-star rated car.
It's already a 5-star rated car.
So for the 6-star. No, I'm joking about the 6-star, but crash test norms also change. And the world went from 30 kmph crash test to 55s, and now we're saying 64s. God knows when they'll turn it into 76. But when you jump 10 kmph in a crash test situation, the car has to absorb a ton more energy in the process because that scale is exponential. So if they are prepping for that, and remember, this correlates to what Kartikeya said, manufacturers are stretching platforms longer and longer in time because they're not able to decide how to do the next one. Does the next one have to be electric only, electric and hybrid and petrol and diesel and CNG? And so it's unclear. So they're stretching older platforms forward, which is why stuff like this will happen. Where they'll say, we can't decide, but we know what's going to happen roughly in the next 3 years. We'll take this platform, we'll strengthen it. And that's the kind of thing that they're doing.
We didn't talk about the prices. The prices are in the range of 20 to 70,000 rupees more, depending on variant and engine combinations. That way, that's broadly where it's at. Yeah. So
Anything else?
no, sir.
Next.
Now after Altroz is
From Tata is the Harrier Electric for sure.
yes, correct.
Right.
The Harrier
Anything
EV.
else from anybody else that you're aware of?
As of now, no.
Okay. We don't know what order they're coming out in, but if you look on the MotorInc app, maybe other MotorInc Firsts are already live and playing. YouTube, we have a restriction about how many we can release in a week, but the app we don't. We've recently recorded the Golf GTI, we've recorded the Altroz, and we've recorded one more.
We did the Clavis.
And the Kia Carens Clavis. So these 3 MotorInc Firsts were recorded almost back to back with each other. On the app, they could be released back to back with each other also. Just check in case you're looking for one of those vehicles.
And the MotorInc First will be free on the app for everybody to watch?
Yeah, MotorInc First is always free on the app. So if you do find a MotorInc First, you shouldn't see the premium label, which means if you want to watch that, then you have to take a membership first. If there's no label, it's just free to watch, you can do that. If you're researching vehicles on the MotorInc app, go to the guide section and look for the vehicle that you're looking for. Guides contain everything we put together on that vehicle in one place. That includes text opinion, photos, specifications, plus every single video we've made. And in Kartikeya is prolific about it. So if you were to look at the old, give me a car name. See,
Okay.
this is how bad I am with cars.
Baleno. Okay.
Okay, so if you take the Baleno, for example, if he's made 28 videos on the Baleno in total, including FAQs, comparisons, road tests, whatever, view balance FAQ, that all data sits in the guide together. You can see it in one place. It's worth checking out. And again, look for the blue label. The blue label are members only. Everything that doesn't have a label is free to watch. The app itself is free to download.
And also the guide, what I would like to say is, what we're doing for cars and for bikes is that not only does it bring everything that we've created around that vehicle in one place, it also provides you a very concise and a very sharp look at the vehicle, with the idea being that it should help enable a decision with a quick scan, a quick read. So that's where, and then if you want to dive deep into any of the other pieces that we have, you have the opportunity to do so from there.
Right.
So it's a great place to start looking at a vehicle and then branch off in whichever direction.
Kartik, anything else you'd like to add?
Just one thing. ThisConnect is playing on the app right now, and should we just point out that the app is free to download for you to sign up and as is ThisConnect. So join us on the app and join into the conversation there. Shumi's been super excited about one particular thing, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And it is a great conversation to dive into because that excitement rubs off. So we'll see you there.
So if you do have any more questions about the Altroz, please do leave us a comment. It's easier for us to track them on the app, so we prefer you leave them there, but anywhere is fine. We try and respond to almost all of our comments anyway. And we are excited about ThisConnect. Please do check it out. It's on the app. You'll need about an hour to get through the first episode. We're really excited about it, and I can't wait to hear what you think in the comments there.